Well,
All right, folks, this is something a little bit different than I normally do. As you know me, as the MMT contrarian, and I do the economic podcast. But now I want to bring on somebody very special in my life. His name is Uncle Bobby. Uncle Bobby also lives in New York City here. He probably doesn't even know this, but like he's been like an idol of mine for my whole life growing up. We're not that far apart in age. My mother was very young. This is my mother's youngest brother, and he's had an amazing life and an amazing story because basically, you really didn't finish school, and your father, my grandfather, your father died young, and you went out on your own as an entrepreneur
at
into so
17.
many different things that you didn't even know about, but you figured it out. But he also has a lot of opinions on the current state of what's going on. So everybody, I want to introduce you to Uncle Bobby. Uncle Bobby, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Well, you're very welcome. And hopefully we could make a dent in government and cities and make it a safer, better place and affordable to live.
So let's start off with this idea because you've been living in New York City your whole entire life, but so have I actually, pretty much. And you're still here.
80 years.
I mean, and I think from my perspective, the city's really gone down to like I maybe worse than the 80s. I used to tell people like that. If you think it's bad, when we had the COVID and we had like riots and shit, I used to tell people, oh, you think that's bad, this is nothing. But I think now we're there. So first of all, let me ask you, what do you think about the future of the city? Is it going to bounce back? I mean, you've been
Well,
in real
the
estate,
city,
you've been in many different kind of ventures. I mean, I see a lot of real estate going up, but at the same time, I see the social fabric like really, really deteriorating.
I agree. I see the city changing rapidly. I see it getting even worse than the early 80s when we had the graffiti and the crime. One thing we didn't have was everybody with guns. So we did have crime and we did have a prison system that kind of kept them in place instead of our wonderful DA, district attorney, who was letting everybody out of prison, and which is a crime because it allows them to go into stores, to hold up people at banks, especially seniors, and take their money and run. And we are losing more police now that just signed up because they're only paying them 42,000 a year, which is the lowest pay I have ever seen to try to live into a city where everything is so expensive. And it's not even in the city, it's anywhere in the United States. It's very hard to live on 42,000 a year,
Yeah,
less taxes. You've got to pay taxes on the
yeah,
40.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
So
even
they're getting all these wonderful young people to become police and they're excited. But after 6 months to a year, and Fox had a whole thing about it, they're losing them because you can't afford to live on 42,000 today. And it's criminal because we had good people coming in, but as soon as they come in within 6 to 8 months, they leave because they're not making money. And in order
but
for them to
let me
make,
ask you something. Do you feel that there was a point maybe a couple of years ago, and this is not necessarily my personal opinion, but I want to ask you, do
Mhm.
you feel there was a point a couple of years ago where policing in the United States needed some reform? In other words, it got to the point where the police were not accountable to anybody and they could shoot people in the back, unarmed people, and stuff like that. Don't you think there was a reaction against that?
I have very mixed feelings on that because I grew up from 1940 to today. And when it came to policing, the police you respected and
Right.
you listened to. If they said move off that step, you moved off that step. If they pulled you over and they gave you a ticket, you didn't open your mouth. So at that point, we had a safer country and safer cities. Yes, I think there's a point that you got to have some reform because some of the police are somewhat nuts, and you have to have a reform to protect the people from them having the right to kill them. And I don't know if I should say this, but many years ago, I was going for a gun permit when I had the limousine service. And
Right.
we had a lot of cash coming in from all the movie stars and rock stars.
By the way, let me just interrupt and let the audience know that you started a limousine service here in New York City back in the 70s that became like the premier star limousine. I actually worked for you one summer when I was in college and I was a chauffeur.
Right.
Probably not very good. You were pissed off at me after time, but anyway, you had Saturday Night Live.
Now, John Belushi was a friend of mine,
I
and
had Mick Jagger in my car. I had Robin Williams in my car. Like I had all these people
friends
in
that
my
I
car.
knew, but
And you
uh,
started that from nothing, which was incredible.
yes, from one car. And I lost my trend, so bring me back to my trend.
Your trend is that um the
About
social
there
situation
should
is
be some
getting
more
social
control over the
situation is
police
getting out of
system.
hand. But here's let's talk about a recent incident that I want to ask you about. And it's the opinions on both sides are very inflamed. They're like hyperbolic. And that is something recently that happened in New York City on the subway. And we know that subway crime has really started to go through the roof again now. There was a guy, a homeless guy, who came onto a train and he was threatening people verbally. He didn't actually physically assault anybody, but he said, "I'm hungry, I'm starving, I'm gonna kill somebody, I'm gonna kill all of you." He wasn't armed or anything like that.
He also said, I don't care if I get killed.
I
I'm
don't
going to
care if I
come
get
after you.
killed.
I don't care if
And the
anyone shoots
guy,
me or kills me.
a young ex-Marine stood up and put him in a chokehold, and it wasn't like he passed out. The guy was struggling for like 15 minutes. So if I'm the Marine, if I'm the guy, and I took like jujitsu, if he's still struggling, I hold on. But did that guy deserve to die because he was hungry and had no place to live?
No one deserves to die. However, people deserve to protect themselves in any way they can. There was a woman that just sent me an email saying she was on that train. She saw the Marine act, and what he did was rightful and right for the people that were on that subway car. Did he mean to kill them? No.
No.
But if you're in a position where someone is almost attacking you or threatening to attack you and threatening everybody on the subway train, and you're helping to hold them back from all the people that are shaking. And I won't take the subway. It costs me $35, $40 to go visit my doctor now because I take an Uber instead of a subway. But the point is, I believe that he did the right thing. Unfortunately, the person died. And I believe the person died not only because of the chokehold, was probably very sick and was not taken care of properly. He does have a mother. He does have a
His
father.
mother his mother was murdered some years before when he was younger. His mother was murdered. That's the information that
Right.
I
But
see
now he's
now.
got a
Uh,
stepmother. He has a father. He has an uncle. I don't understand why they would let him live on a subway car, not put him on proper medicine, not seek help from the city, which they offer plenty of help if you ask them to help the person that is mentally disturbed. So they will put the problem onto the father more than the city taking care of it, but they will send a nurse over once a week, make sure he's taking the medicine, make sure he's not living on a subway, make sure he gets food, which they could deliver right to his house, and keep him in a safer, healthier position. So do I think Perry was wrong? If I was on that subway, I would freak out. I would totally freak out. I think Perry was right to protect the other passengers and protect himself. I
And it's
think
something that kind of, some people are calling it vigilantism. I don't call it vigilantism.
not a
I see it
vigilante.
as you see
Vigilante
it,
was
that
the KKK.
it's
What
just an
happened in
unfortunate thing that,
1950s,
the guy
1960s.
died. But here's the thing, like, if you see what's going on in this country right now, like, now we got this whole bullshit with the debt ceiling and we don't know what, but yet we're fighting these wars in Ukraine. Zelensky says, I need $100 billion. Boom. Congress doesn't even debate it, nothing. The check is written $100 billion.
Well,
Well,
I think Zelensky should
you got
take out,
situation.
he's worth $1 billion something. I think he should use his own money first before we start feeding him money.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like when you see policy here, and you see a lot, I think the statistic is something like 50 or 60% of Americans can't afford a $400 emergency, but we got $100 billion to send to Ukraine to fight the Russians. I mean, I
Very
just see
sick.
that as a thing between the Russians and the Ukrainians, and I don't see a path away from that, because I think that the politics has been captured by the money interest, corporations, big money, don't you?
Yes, I think big money is in it. I think other major companies are in it, and they want the war. They don't want to stop the war.
They want it because it's profit.
Exactly. It brings in, you take the ammunition and the tanks and all the equipment they're sending. That's money.
And
That's big business.
you see like the defense budget, Biden asked for like, now I think it's like 900 billion. Like, I think we spend more than the next 10 or 11 countries combined. There was no debate about that. It was like, it was never like, oh, how are we going to pay for it? But like, if it's about universal health care, if it's about education, if it's about infrastructure, if it's about the environment, it's like, oh, we don't have the money, we can't pay for it. Like, how do you justify that? You can pay for 100 billion to send over to Zelensky, or a trillion for the defense budget, but say we don't have the money for this other stuff.
No, I think they got to cut back on that and have other nations join in to help send money to the Ukraine, or they should really just have a mediator sit down with Russia and the Ukraine and make some sort of peace agreement and work something out that it doesn't cost our country so much money, and they could help the people in our country that are homeless and can't buy food and living on the street, and what's going on is criminal to our country. It's
Because
absolutely criminal.
if you look around at the United States, which is a country of such abundance. Like, I go, no matter where I go, I don't care whether I go to California, or I go to Florida, or I go to Ohio, I go to Illinois. There's so much abundance, yet it is so like kind of rationed to like a very small percentage of people. That's a function of, that's politics. That's just policy. That's the way it is.
It's definitely a function of who has the most money and who they play to. Because there's so much to be had in the United States and so much work to do in the United States that
Do
if
you
they would
think
utilize the money better and stop overspending, we can make our country great again. And they're just not doing it. I mean,
you said make the country great again, so that's Trump's slogan. So what do you think about Trump? Do you think he's going to be reelected in 2024?
no,
And we've been around, me and you, we've been around in New York since the very beginning of that guy, like since the very beginning of that guy.
Well, he
And
found his niche. He definitely found his niche. Uh,
I would
and
say,
do I think he'll win? No, I think I don't know what's going to happen because
what do you think of
I don't really believe
Biden?
I don't think Biden's going to win. I think
You think this guy from Florida, DeSantis, is going to be the guy?
he's got a good shot. I think if uh, his rating could get better and he stops opening his mouth and some stupid stuff that he's saying, then that would help him. And I think he could make a pretty good president.
I think Trump would crush him personally. I just think Trump's base is so solid, and they're not gonna move. Now, let me talk to you about a different subject, which is real estate, and that's something that you've been involved with your whole life. I mean, you've built homes, you've had hotels, you've had restaurants. Incredible story from a guy who basically never really even finished high school. Like it is impressive, and I commend you for that. But like you and I have been having this personal kind of debate where you're saying it's got to crash, and I keep saying there's not enough homes being built.
100%.
I mean, we've never seen a crash. We've never seen a housing price crash in the United States unless there was at least 2 million housing starts annually. And that even goes back to the days when the population was 180 million. Now we're 320, 330 million, and we're doing 1.3, 1.4 million. I just don't see housing prices crashing.
Well, it's a difficult problem because not only are we not building enough housing, but you also have to deal with your local community boards that say, not in my neighborhood, because it means more schools, bigger roads, and it's very political and it's very tough. But yes, we should be building 4 million houses a year. And a lot of people get scared when you say they're going to be affordable housing. That means someone that's going to pay two, three, or maybe 400,000. A lot of people think when you say affordable, it's going to be 50, 60, 70,000, and the
Right.
demographics they don't want in their neighborhood. And that's another problem that we have with the housing industry because we're not building enough. The cost of lumber right now really zoomed down to 50% below what it was.
Right. It came down a lot. Came down a lot.
But you really don't need lumber. You can use hemp seed and make wood. But going back to wood, it came down a lot. And also, if you do have this migration, a lot of them know how to work with cement, so your labor costs could come down. But then you have these big hedge funds that are holding the prices high and holding back Pulte and GL and all these big companies not to produce enough so they could make higher margins. And also they're buying up all the vacant housing
Right, right,
in states to make them into rental markets.
right, right,
Those are
right.
not governed under any state or city. So you could rent at 1,000 a month. And then when your lease is up, they can say, I want 5,000 a month. How
Yeah.
do you protect people from that?
You can't, well, that's another example of government capture by, Wall Street or the money interest. Like I agree with you. Like I don't think that should be allowed. Like why are they
Well,
scooping up all the houses?
you have to have a cap, and it has to be a cap like the CPI. So if you want to be a landlord and a renter and you're capping it with a CPI, well, that makes sense. If you're going to rent something at 2,000 a month, and then when your lease is up, and I just saw an elderly couple, like 89, leave this building because their rent went from 2,300 to $5,000.
Wow.
That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
absolutely crazy. That's putting someone in the street.
Yeah, yeah.
So they have to figure out a way how to cap it and not to make it jump at the proportions that it jumped. And of course, the housing market right now has jumped because, like you said, we're not building the 4 million houses
No.
year to keep your prices at a level and still let it grow at least a CPI or better and allow people to be able to own and allow people to have a place to live.
Would you consider like just as a point of conversation, would you consider like moving to a foreign country, establishing a different life somewhere else?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Do you have thoughts about where you might go?
Yes, I'm thinking about Italy, I'm thinking about Spain, I'm thinking about Portugal. Uh, I like France, but I don't like what's happening in France.
Yeah.
Italy is having their problems with immigration also, and the president, she's trying to hold it back from Africa and Syria and other countries. So they're having their problems too. So, but I don't think they have a severe gun problem like we do. We have a very, very severe gun problem.
What is your remedy? Like I'll just admit to who's ever watching, I'm a proponent, I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment. Okay, I grew up, my dad, he owned 7 guns. He used to take me to the range. We used to shoot. I took my kids, to ranges to shoot. Even my daughter, Masha, she shot an AK-47. She shot an AR-15. She shot a 44 Magnum revolver. Um, I don't know. Like I'm a supporter of the
I
Second Amendment.
understand.
Like I'd be against the elimination of the
Let me
free
say
right
this.
to own guns.
There is a middle that what you just said, your father took you to a shooting range. Now, why can't people lock their guns up in that shooting range, or if they're going hunting and belong to a lodge, lock their gun up and get it and do their thing and then put it back in and not just have it in every housing where I had a friend and his uncle lived in Boca and it was Halloween and a kid went behind the house and scared him and he blew the kid's head off and I had to get Roy Black to help him to defend it. So, and you had this 6-year-old kid that went to school and shot the school teacher. It
Right.
just, I just can't see what's happening with guns as being a,
Why is this endemic? Why is this unique to the United States? Don't you think do you think it's just purely about the amount of guns, or don't you think it's like we have like an epidemic of mental illness? Like I would never think if I bought an AR-15, I would never think about using it against anybody. I'd probably just go to the range and shoot, and that's it. I'm not even like a hunter.
right.
Like,
So
don't
if
you think
somebody
it's
could
a
do
problem
that
with
and
mental illness?
and they
Like
took
this
your
doesn't
gun.
happen in any other country.
Exactly, exactly. Why doesn't it happen in any other country? Why do they have better control? Why do they have a better system? And we have to look at that and we have to follow some of that.
Well,
Like I said, if you
I'll
have
give
a
you
gun
I'll give you
and
one
you have it
answer.
locked up and you go to a range and then they give you that gun, at least temporarily, till they get this gun situation under control.
I lived in Switzerland for 10 years, and army service is compulsory in Switzerland, and every male in Switzerland has a gun at home. I mean, they give it because everybody is, but they don't go around shooting people.
The same thing in Israel. Everybody got to go to the army. I believe the United States should pull the draft back in and get these thugs off the street that are 18 to 27 that are stealing stores, stealing goods, hitting people on the head when they leave an ATM bank, and not even going to jail because the system right now, and again, it has to do with our wonderful district attorney. He just opened the doors that they go right out the same day. So the cops don't even want to pick them up because they're doing too much paperwork and they're out in a couple hours. That's crazy. That's crazy. There's got to be a better balance. And we don't have the balance.
No, we don't have the balance. And I think the balance is we're far from the balance, and it's getting skewed in a direction that it's kind of frightening. Like, you and I were old enough to understand. Like, my father was a New York City fireman. He made $11,000 a year. It was enough to support. My mother didn't have to work. We had our house, we had vacation trips, we had cars, we had a swimming pool in the backyard. I went to an Ivy League school. Like, now it's just like a situation where unless you're at the top, like
You're in big
nobody can
trouble
live like that anymore. And it becomes I think it becomes a pressure and a stress.
just to wake up.
People break down, man. They just lose it.
Yep, that's creating more mental problems. And that's why you see more mental people on the street, because the pressure that they're giving average America, they can't withstand it. And then you have families where the wife and husband works and no one is watching their children.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's another big problem we
Yeah.
have, because
Yeah.
they're growing up among their own friends and having a gun and shooting it and going in and robbing something that's supposedly cool to them, because they have no one to guide them and teach them. So it's a very big major problem, and the people in Congress and the Senate, they also should have term limits, just like a
I
president.
agree with that. Yeah.
Not run for
Totally.
70 years. That's absurd.
Yeah.
And there should be an age limit on how old a president could be before he runs, because if a president runs in his mid to late 70s, like Trump, I mean, there's a very good chance he could die in office.
And this guy, Biden's going to be in his 80s
Yeah.
when he runs
There have
in
to be
next year.
limitations on these things, but it's for the younger generation to really get more involved into politics and what they want to see and how they want to make their future, because then
Was there a president in your life that you can recall who you can say honestly, like, he did a great job?
well, one of my favorite presidents is John F. Kennedy.
Yes. Yeah, and I would
Really
totally
always have.
agree.
And he was a wonderful, wonderful human being. And he really worked for the working class people. So he would be my number one choice. Most of them, I don't think is that great. I like some of Reagan's.
Johnson did a lot of social programs. He did a lot of things with like what do you call it, like equal rights amendment and stuff like that. Johnson did a lot of stuff, but I would agree with you on the Kennedy, absolutely. And it's a shame, like, he went out so young. I was a little kid. I remember that being announced. I was in kindergarten. I was in fucking kindergarten, and it came over the loudspeaker, and my teacher started crying.
Whole city.
Anyway, let me wrap it up, but I'm gonna ask you, you like California and you have investments there, and you own some property, but the last time I went out there, I mean, there's just homeless camps. It's an amazing state if you think about the geography of the state, the resources, the wealth is tremendous. But
Well,
what's happening? You got tent cities all over the place.
I just read an article that the mayor of LA, she's buying the Roosevelt Hotel to make studio apartments for homeless people that she's going to allow to live there for 2 years while they slowly put them into other housing. So they're buying big properties right now to get the people off the street, out of the tent, and give them a place to live. And the city's buying it for, I think it was 200 million or 28 million. I don't remember the number, but it was a large number. And it gave them something like 350 rooms, which they will make and do a little kitchenette and allow these people that are living in tents to get off the street and have a place to at least call home for the next 2 years while they redevelop other areas. So that's a very good plan.
Yeah.
we're not having that good plan. We're paying 6,000 a month to bring migration in and putting them into hotel rooms. We're not
Right,
even taking care of the people that are on the street yet. We're not even taking care of the mentally ill on the street yet. They're
we-
more into taking care of migration, which I don't understand why we allowed so much migration to come in when our cities and our infrastructure and everything is not in place to even deal with it. It's crazy. They're not leaving countries where they're taking them and lining them up and shooting them against the wall. They could still be in those countries and come in. The only reason why they allowed them to come in so quickly was because of COVID. Now, as of yesterday, they stopped that. So now it will take 5 years for them to get a permit to be able to stay. So that's more logical. But in the
yeah,
meantime, you have a few 100,000 people that they have nowhere to put them.
yeah,
It's crazy. It's not normal. It's sick. And
yeah,
we are a nation of migration. The United States has always been.
absolutely.
Right. So we all come from different parts of the world. And it should be dealt with in a total different way. And I really think young people have to get more involved into their city and country to make it the wonderful place it used to be.
Yeah, well,
Because
they don't even teach civics, like most kids, they don't even understand how a bill or a law is passed in Congress. But anyway, let me finish off by asking you this. Are you optimistic or pessimistic about the future of the United States?
I'm more pessimistic than optimistic.
More pessimistic.
It depends.
So you don't see these trends changing in any way. You don't see the
Not
political motivation to make it happen. You don't see a leader who might come along and say, like, frankly, I thought I voted for Trump the first time in 2016 because he was saying all the right things, and then but he didn't deliver on it. And so, like,
he's more
after
of a
that, I
white
was just,
supremacist than a real leader. And for what he did to when he didn't win the election and he sent the people,
yeah, no, that was,
that was really as low as you could go. I mean,
yeah.
that's really disgusting. But I do see people that might, in the next 5 to 10 years, be able to move the country in a better direction. I do think we should start the draft again. I think it'll make our country healthier.
I think that would stop a lot of these wars because
100,000%. It would stop a tremendous amount of wars. And God forbid we should get attacked by Iran or Syria or any other country. We would have the wherewithal to just stand up and not even go into a war, but just they would just see the amount of people we have behind us. And I think it's a very important issue for mental health and teaching them how to fly a plane because we're losing our pilots and we're not going to be able to have pilots to fly plane, and teaching them discipline and teaching them how to use a gun in a safe manner. So I think it would help the country a lot to start there. And then again, you have these people that if they're a Republican, they don't want to work with the Democrat. If they're a
right.
Democrat, they don't want to work. They're too old. They're just too old, and they
But
should not be
they're
there.
bought, they're bought, they're
Bought by
captured.
pharmaceuticals, they're bought by
Big
hedge funds, they're bought.
corporations, they're bought by BlackRock, they're bought.
Yes, of course they're bought, but they got to stop that.
I don't know how you stop that. I mean, I don't
You
know.
stop it by not allowing them to
You
talk
need
to
some
anyone
kind
in
of revolution, man. You need some kind of revolution. I don't know how you stop that. Like,
well,
money
I think if
is
there was a
power.
government, we're going to have a revolution because it's not balanced in a way
No,
that be balanced. We're way off on our balance. I mean, it's crazy. And I'm not racist, but it's crazy what's happening. And I just fear for the country.
well, I echo a lot of your sentiments, Uncle Bobby. It's been great. having you on the show. I really appreciate it. Hopefully, we could do this more often.
Okay,
And, hopefully people will enjoy our conversations. Anyway, thanks a lot, Bobby.
good, and we can have many more different conversations.
We got many more different conversations to come. for
Absolutely.
sure.
So you have a
All right,
great
then.
night.
Take it easy.
You take care.
Bye.